Hey designers, welcome to your first Fusion tutorial. Before we get into our first little project of making a keychain, we'll walk through some of the main features in this interface. At the top, you have like our most commonly used functions and buttons, and you'll see those change depending on what you're doing in Fusion. Up here, you have a little account icon, so make sure you are signed in so everything gets saved to your account. Up here, you have a file name, and then you have a few little buttons for navigation and some basic settings. One of the things you'll use quite a lot probably is this view cube. So if you rotate this, you can get different views of everything you're doing. And if you ever get lost, you just click the home button and that'll change it back to the default view. So like I said, we're going to make a little keychain for our first project. So it's going to be a 2D project, and everything in Fusion starts with a 2D sketch. So on your little toolbar, there is a button that says Create Sketch. I'm going to click on that. And then the first thing it's going to ask you to do is, where do you want to put this sketch? Since Fusion is a three-dimensional program, we can put it on any one of these different planes. And good practice is to start your sketches on the XY plane. So that's this bottom one. So I'm going to click on that. And then you'll also see Fusion automatically changes the perspective to a top-down view, because that's easier when I'm doing a 2D sketch. You can move this around with your mouse, you can play around with that a little bit, and you'll see your tools at the top have changed. So I'm going to make a really basic keychain, just a rectangle, a hole, and then maybe a few designs on it, and that's going to be it. I'm going to start with a 2-point rectangle. Now, if for some reason you don't see the 2-point rectangle, you can always click the drop down for Create, go to Rectangle, and you'll find your 2-point rectangle there. I'm going to select it from my toolbar, and I could start drawing a rectangle, but it's good practice in Fusion to always start your designs from the origin. So this right here is origin. I'm going to click to place my first corner, and I want my rectangle to be 60 millimeters by 40 millimeters. And I can try to get it exactly right, but it's going to be almost impossible. Much easier way to do this is to type in your dimensions. You'll see right now my 57.5 is highlighted. I can use my keyboard to type in 60. Then I'm going to use my tab key to switch to a different box. I can keep doing that to switch between the two, and the second box will be 40. Once I'm happy with those measurements, I'm just going to hit enter on my keyboard, and there is my first box. Now for some reason say, you know what, I didn't want it to be 40, I want it to be 50. You can just double click on this measurement, change it to 50, and it automatically fixes everything. So that's part one. So I'm going to say finish sketch, even though I'm not really done yet. And when you do that, it's going to go back to the 3D view, and I can see what my sketch looks like in 3D. Now before I keep working on my sketch, I'm going to make a few little adjustments. On the left here in my view tree, I have my sketches. There's a little triangle here to show a few sketches, and I have one sketch is called Sketch 1. When you're doing a simple project like this, it is fine, but once you start getting more complex designs with multiple sketches, multiple bodies, it is good practice to rename those. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to control click or right click on Sketch 1, go to rename. I'll call this one Keychain, and that way it'll be easy for me to find it later on. Second thing I will do is right now my document is still called Untitled. The good news is Fusion automatically saves these files. Bad news, if you have a bunch of untitled files, it's not really going to be helpful. So I'm going to go to my file, and I'm going to say save. And we're not going to spend too much time on this, but there are multiple locations. The default location is the name they use to sign up, or your team name. You can make new projects, new folders, but I'm going to go with the default. I'm going to call this one Keychain. Hit save, and then again, I will be able to find that later on. Now, if I want to go back to editing my sketch, there's a few things I could do. I could double click my sketch in my tree here, or I can use my timeline. Now, your timeline keeps track of every single thing you do in Fusion. So it's a great way to go back in time and make fixes, changes if you made mistakes. So I'm just going to double click my sketch, and that opens up my sketch again. I can start making changes or adding things. First thing I want to add is a little hole at the top to connect my chain to my holder, and I'm going to use my center diameter circle for that. So you could, again, try to get it in the exact same spot, but I'm just going to put it approximately where I think it's going to go. I'm going to click once to say, yeah, that's the center. And then I can get it where I want it to be. Or again, I can just type in the numbers. I'm going to make this an 8mm circle, hit enter, and now my circle is there. I can try to move it, but again, it's going to be really hard to get it exactly in the correct spot. So instead of trying to put it where I want it, I'm going to use sketch dimensions. So this button on the toolbar lets you define sketch dimensions. You can define the size of an object or differences or distances between two parts of your sketch. I'm going to say from the center of my circle all the way to this line, and just drag it up. It says right now it's 25.77. I want it to be exactly 25mm because that'll put my hole in the middle. So I'll type in 25, enter, and now that is perfectly centered. I'm going to do the same thing for the distance of my center to the top line, so it's still selected. So I'm going to click center of my circle, this top line, put this one on this side, and I want that to be 10mm. So 10, enter, and now it is perfectly positioned. And again, if you say, you know, this 10 doesn't really work, you can just double click it and change the numbers. I'm going to hit escape to deselect my sketch dimension tool. I'm going to click finish sketch to see what it looks like so far.